Today's guest is Darren Booth. Darren's an illustrator and letterer. In this episode, he shares his method of negotiating and the analog approach to making art with your hands. We talk about client work and not doing work for free, plus so much more. Darren has a wealth of knowledge and he shares it with us here, so you don't want to miss this. Let's get to know more about Darren Booth. Darren, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So, pencil or pixel?
Pencil, hands down. Yeah, I don't know if I know some people kind of hem and haw over that question.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's hands down. It's pencil, and mainly because I think I can probably operate pretty much the same capacity that I'm operating at now, without the aid of the computer. So it might take me longer to do some things. Like I'd have to actually go to a library and look for reference versus Google, and I'd have to get out the photocopier and kind of cut and paste my roughs together, and rather than just scanning them and cutting them apart in Photoshop. But yeah, it's pencil, hands down.
Awesome. And we'll get into your work in just a moment, but can you tell us what you do and how you got where you are? Just for the folks out there that aren't familiar with work or that would like to know a little bit more, how did you get into this?
Well, I always kind of knew I wanted to get into art. I didn't really know what it was. But yeah, like in high school, I had a couple teachers saying, you should go to Sheridan. You should go to Sheridan. And Sheridan was kind of the school to get into in Ontario, in Canada, for art if you could get into it. And so for all of high school, all I knew was I wanted to go to Sheridan, or I was supposed to go to Sheridan. But I didn't know what for. And I didn't really know I had no clue what illustration was. I didn't know what an illustrator, what they did.
Were you teachers saying you should be an illustrator, or were they saying you should get into art generally?
No, I think they were kind of aiming me towards animation, because Sheridan was kind of the place to end up for animation. And there was a couple people that would kind of graduate school ahead of me, and they would come back to the high school and say, here's my work, and they'd show the portfolio, and it'd be this amazing, or what I thought was amazing stuff, and it would be like first year animation stuff, and it really was cool. Yeah. But I was like, wow, I'd love to do that. And then graduated high school, got into Sheridan.
Nice.
Like, this is great. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I just took it was called Art Fundamentals, just a 1-year general art course. And then from there you got a taste of graphic design, you got a taste of animation, you got into life drawing, so you could kind of figure out, okay, you know what, I'm probably not going to be a graphic designer, or I'm probably not going to be an animator. And those that first 6 or 8 weeks into Art Fundamentals, I started seeing all the animation work up in the hallways, and it wasn't for me. I was like, you know what, I don't want to draw a ball 700 times just to get like a minute's worth of film or whatever it is. So, but I started seeing all the illustration work hanging in the hallways. I was like, you know what, this is what really is kind of making my heart beat, right? So, and it was good. So it was kind of funny, because after my first, not even semester, it was like the first quarter of school, I went back for Thanksgiving and hung out with my family, and I was like looking at my old notebooks and journals from high school, and we were forced to keep sketchbooks in high school.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but most people wouldn't think to do it in high school, but yeah. I look back at them, and I would kind of sketch and stuff, and I'd be pulling out of my old guitar magazines. I'd be ripping out the illustrations and sticking them in, and be like, wow, this is an awesome image. But I didn't realize that was an illustrator. And when I look back at it, I had images pulled from Christian Northeast, Jason Hawley, and some of these guys who are, high up in the industry now, and are still around and still producing fantastic work. But yeah, I didn't know it was them. I didn't know it was an illustrator. So I think I kind of always had that path. I just needed to find it, or for it to find me, maybe, right? So, but yeah, I graduated Sheridan in 2001, and then I've just been freelancing ever since.
Awesome.
And most of my work is I don't even know how to describe it. I just kind of do it. I don't know. it's stylized realism fragmented by collage, maybe is the best way to.
Why didn't you say to yourself, okay, so I got this part down. I know how to put these things together physically.
Mhm.
What? Why haven't you? What made you decide not to go into starting to use a computer and render everything digitally?
um I just like working with my hands. So I kind of knew if I wasn't going to be doing art, I'd be doing something with my hands, most likely carpentry or doing drywall or something. Like like I started working with my grandfather's drywalling business when I was 10. It came pretty naturally, being able to handle a brush and being able to like paint a house and patch walls and put up drywall. And my dad, he's a woodworker. My grandfather's a woodworker. So I've always kind of been exposed to working with my hands. So yeah, if it wasn't going to be art, it would have been working with my hands somehow. But I found like with making the switch to digital, it just felt like I'm just clicking a mouse. Like I'm not really working with my hands as much as I'd like to. So working with collage and being able to like actually mix the paint, put it on, I can still feel it. I can still feel the brush, kind of grinding against the canvas and stuff, and layering the paper and cutting it with my hands and sticking it
What about
down.
these things?
Yeah, I've got one. It's
Do you use it?
yeah, yeah, I sure do. It's yeah,
It's funny that I asked because I have it and I haven't been using it.
no,
No.
it's I've tried to convert a lot of people, and like people I don't maybe just people are like, well, what the hell, Darren, you work traditionally, maybe I shouldn't trust you. But I use that thing every time I open the computer, work in Photoshop or Illustrator, I'm on the Wacom. But yeah, it's one of my friends. He's like, no, you got to try it. And he's always worked digitally for say 10 years or so. And I remember the first time, I like it was like trying to draw with a potato. You just like I'm like or draw with your foot. Like I just can't do this. What
Tough.
am
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
doing? And it's totally different because you're looking at the monitor, but your hand is down here. Where when you're normally drawing, you're watching your hand and you're watching what the pencil's doing, right?
Yeah.
So my brain just melted. I couldn't make that connection at first. So I was like, oh, fuck this. If I can't do that in the first 30 seconds, this is pointless. I'm not going to bother doing it. And I didn't touch it for 5 or 6 years. And I did all my Photoshop work, click, 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 with a mouse or with the trackpad. And then finally, he's like, you know what? He goes, I'm going to, you just need to try it. He goes, it'll save you so much time in Photoshop. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll try it. He's like, just give it a week. I'm like, a week? I'm like, I didn't even give it 30 seconds without wanting to throw the thing out the window. So he's like, just do everything that you can online, like surf the web with it,
Yeah. Yeah.
write your emails, do whatever you can using the Wacom, just general surfing, right? And he goes, after a couple days, he goes, it should be really, really comfortable. And sure enough, he was right. And yeah, and I've never gone back. Like I can't. It's really hard to use a mouse in Photoshop now. Like it just feels like I'm crawling. But with the Wacom, yeah, it's and most of the time in Photoshop, like all I'm doing is scanning, but I still have to go through the scan because my work is like it's really glossy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so when you scan something, you're getting that light reflection off the artwork. So I've got to go in and correct a lot of that. And the odd area, like scanners are only so good. Like I mean, they're great now, but my palettes, like they might have 400 or 500 colors in them, but the scanner doesn't see all that. So blues I find are really hard to scan. So I've got to usually go in and like it'll like I might paint in cyan, but when I scan it, it looks ultramarine for whatever reason. So I have to go in and kind of and tweak it back to the way I want it that way. But yeah, like I still work in Photoshop quite a bit, and I use it for cutting apart my roughs and sending off my roughs and kind of working through ideas. But yeah, my end product it starts with pencil and it always ends with a brush. But Photoshop and the Wacom is totally like
The time saver, right?
yeah, exactly. It's not something that I necessarily need, but if I do want to produce work quickly or somewhat quickly, then it's kind of it's just a tool. Is all it is. But
How do you scan large pieces? Do you take a picture of them, or you scan them on something?
No, my work's really small. Well, I mean that piece in the background right there.
Yeah.
That's the original that I did for that book cover. Um, so the 1, 2, 3. That was from maybe 6 scans or 4 scans. Um, so a lot of times, like I've just got an 8.5 by 11 scanner, but I usually let the size of the scanner dictate the size of the artwork that I'm going to make. So if I can't get it in 1 scan or 2 scans, then I'll try to figure something else out. But yeah, most of the time I try to get it in 1 or 2 scans.
Yeah, because
But
I've
yeah,
seen
that
some
one.
some of your larger pieces, but those are just standalone pieces. You don't scan them in and do anything with anything
Yeah, the
digitally
odd
with them.
time I have the odd time, like, or I maybe want to work larger or something. I'll just tack it to the wall and photograph it if I need to. Um, but yeah, most of the time I try to scan it. The odd time I've done projects where they'll need it at like 1,000 DPI or something. So then I don't have a choice but to scan it. But like, oh my god, what a pain in the butt scanning that stuff, because your computer's like ready to reach out and slap you because it's like 1,200 DPI and your file's like 5 gigs, and oh yeah, it's and that's probably one of the other reasons why I don't like to work digitally is like I just want to be able to see the results, like build up to the results almost, not necessarily just kind of wait for them to save and Control Z to undo it. Like, I don't know. I like that there's maybe not necessarily forgiveness when you're painting or drawing sometimes, right? It's
That's what makes it really interesting, though, right?
yeah. Well, and the perfection comes from the imperfection of the actual that it's hand done. That I can't make it perfectly straight or perfectly this way, and it's I'm cut like every piece of collage that goes on. It's cut by hand, and I glue it down with my fingers. It's not like I use even like an X-Acto blade. Like I rub the glue on and I stick it down, and by the time I'm done, my hands are covered, and I touch like anything I touch to, stuff sticks to me. So it's
Oh man.
yeah, I like to kind of get in there and get dirty, and yeah, it's just that whole tactile thing. I need to feel the artwork, right? But as of late, it's with client work. I don't know. I find sometimes like they get you to like come out of your comfort zone with a project or two, right? So I did these skis recently, and the art director, is like, "Well, can you just send me the files of whatever paintings we are, and we'll just kind of manipulate them, or you can manipulate them enough to maybe the color palettes that we kind of decide on. We can tweak them." I'm like, not to screw you over, but I work traditionally, so I don't work. He's like, okay, I'm like, but I'll give it a shot. I'm like, but I might need a little bit of guidance here with what you're thinking or what. But so I sent him off all these files, and sent him off like an actual original painting, and most of it was great. And there's just one section of the ski, like it was just kind of an abstract that would appear in the ski. So there was no actual imagery, but he just kind of took one section. He collaged another one of my paintings into it. And I was like, wait, how in the heck did you do that? And he's like, oh, I did it with the color range and this and this and this. And he just kind of walked me through it. And all of a sudden I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it was like an epiphany. I was like, I know how I can do this even better now. So instead of like selecting an area and like adjusting hue and saturation, and he's like, just do this this color range thing, and you can kind of paste into it and do this and do that. And it was such a better way of doing it that I've already used that trick on like a couple jobs that came after it. So I'm starting to use the computer a little bit more. And the current job that I'm working on, like it's the one that there's this job that's going to the end of September, early October. Uh, they're kind of requesting some elements, not necessarily put in digitally, but some of the stuff they're requesting, I can't pull the texture for or the imagery for. Like I have no choice but to put it in digitally. But now that I know this trick, it's so the stuff I'm working on now, about 95% of it is actual painting, and then this last 5% is just the odd specific texture that they want, or the specific photo collage that they want added in. So, but yeah, it's great how it kind of in probably another 2 years from now, and maybe I'll be at like 80% traditional and 20% digital. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I prefer to.
And then the percentage is going to keep dwindling, right? After that.
Yeah, eventually there's going to be a robot.
Like, throw the paintbrushes
Let's-
out.
Yeah, if I'm not, I feel like I'm going to be a dinosaur if I don't try to keep up with, at least kind of keeping up with a Wacom at least and some programs but being digital, it's just a tool, right? Like I don't have to work digitally if I don't need to, but being able to work digitally when I need to is pretty valuable, right? So.
Absolutely. Hey, do you set up your own? Do you have representation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of a different situation. Like it's not a traditional artist rep. So, like I've been freelancing since 2001, so 13 years now. First couple years, I definitely didn't need a rep at all because I wasn't getting enough work to really pay any bills, right? So I had like a part-time job, part full-time job that was completely not art related at all, and I still kind of moonlight freelance. And then I think it was 2 years ago, I started getting busy enough that I was starting to get stressed because I'd be like writing 2 or 3 estimates a week, sending that off, working on sketches, sending the finals off, and doing all the invoicing and still hunting for the next job and trying to promote at the same time. Like it just got so busy that I needed an extra pair of hands. So, but with me being somewhat of a control freak with how my work is presented, I didn't really like the idea of like a traditional illustration rep, especially with editorial. You don't need a rep for editorial as far as I'm concerned. I mean, some people do, but for the most part, like I've always handled my own contracts. I can always negotiate more money. 95% of the jobs that come in, if they say the budget is X, I always ask for more. It's just
How does
just
it go?
how it is.
How does it turn out usually when you do that?
Uh, I'd say 90% of the time I'd get more money. Yeah, it's
So
5
all
or
it
6.
takes is asking, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? One of my teachers at Sheridan, he's like, well, if you need an extra day for a deadline, just ask. He goes, otherwise you're not going to know. Because if you need more money for a job, just ask them. The worst they can say is no. So he goes, but you just have to know how to ask them, right? So after 4 or 5 years of illustrating, I was like, you know what? I've been working with this client for 4 years and still the same budget. And which in editorial, that's not uncommon because now like the budgets in editorial are the exact same as what they were when I started 13 years ago. Oh, here's the cat.
There he is.
But yeah, so I started asking for more money. One of my
So how would you ask?
I Googled it first. I was like, I'll ask for more money as a freelancer or something like that.
Oh, that's great. I love
And this writer's blog came up and she's like, this is how I get more money. And she had like 4 or 5 tips, but 1 or 2 of them applied. And all you have to say is like, 800 sounds a little bit low for a magazine cover. Can we make it? And then you give them a figure like 12.
So you use the we. That's
and all of a sudden you're a team.
yeah.
So,
So
but you
that's
have to
key, right?
agree.
You got to say we.
Yeah, and give them a reason. You can't just say, well, I don't work for anything under $800.
Yeah.
Like, you need to kind of give them a reason, like, well, my work takes a long time to do, or
Which is true.
Yeah, give them some sort of like an actual good reason why you need more money or something, right? And the worst they can say is no, but they might not have $1,200, but they might say, you know what, we don't have 12, but would you take 1,000 or 1,100 or something? So you got an extra $200 or $300 that you didn't have before just because you asked for it in a professional manner. And it's that kind of that one line, and that kind of changed everything for me. Where not everything, but it was just a good turning point where I realized, you know what, I shouldn't be afraid to ask for more money. I was afraid to ask for more money for a long time, or I was always afraid to ask for like a better deadline or something like that. I would just stress and stress and stress. I'd be like, oh, they need it by tomorrow. They need it by tomorrow, or they need it by Friday. And
Oh yeah.
what is the point? Like, yeah, just ask. I'm like, you know what? Can I have till Tuesday? And then I'd have all weekend to work on it if I wanted those extra couple days, right? So.
Did you ever? So what was it? Was there a specific moment where you thought, wait a minute, I don't need to do this by tomorrow. I'll ask if I could finish it by the following week or in a couple of days. Was there a moment where you just really thought about it, or was it something that happened that made you start asking for a little more time when you needed to, a little more time?
Yeah, I think it was more when I needed to, but I think it was just general experience. Just realizing that, just because they say Friday doesn't necessarily mean they need it by Friday. Especially in book publishing. Book publishing, they just want it by then, and they're not going to do anything with it for like 3 months sometimes. So the more I kind of started working in book publishing and more advertising, I think maybe that's kind of when things clicked a little bit more, and I realized, okay, you know what? Nobody's going to die if I don't get them this artwork on Friday night or something, right? So,
Yeah.
and on Friday, what's somebody going to do with it on a Friday? They're just going to plop it in the lake and worry about it on Monday. So they're not going to work on it on the weekend. Like, yeah,
Exactly.
I would always try to like bend over backwards to meet deadlines, and then it's just, it's not worth it. I'd rather give myself an extra 2 days and ask the client, what, can I score an extra few days from you? And then that piece I have that extra time to work on it. I get a better piece, they get a better piece. It's win-win, right? So
In your early days, did you ever do any work for free?
no, not really. I was kind of opposed to it right from the start. I did like friends' art shows and stuff like that, but I
Yeah.
didn't. I never worked for an actual client for free, like where I didn't know the person or something
Yeah.
like that. I do some stuff for a friend or like a relative, but I don't know if I would categorize as working for free. I think working for free is usually I'm working for free, but somebody else along that food chain is getting paid. That's what I'm not really cool with. Like today, there was an offer. Hey, we're producing this book, and it's going to be, a bunch of cover designers are featured in the book. Do you want to be featured in the book? And like, I know I don't actually have to create work for the book. It's just a matter of like pulling some existing work and letting them use it. But they aren't paying their contributors. So, and that's really common. Like I probably get one of those every 2 weeks or 3 weeks where somebody's saying, you know what, can you contribute work to it? And you get the free promotion and the free advertising, and you're included amongst your peers and everything. But I've done a few of those in the past, and all that it gets me is just a bunch of weird emails from people saying, "Hey, I found your work in this collection of illustration. Can you tell me what your inspiration is?" And it's like from
And
some
that's
said,
it.
yeah, just random like emails from Brazil at 4 a.m. Somebody asking me what my inspiration is, and nothing ever came of these books that I was involved with. So I just started saying no to them, and you know what? If you're not going to pay your contributors, it's not worth it. So, I mean, I'm sure the writer's getting paid at some point, and I'm sure the publisher's getting paid. I know they're footing the bill, but they're making the money off of it, off all the content that the people are giving. So the contributors need to be comp for that too, right? So,
So, Darren, on that note, what is your inspiration?
oh, jeez. Life and
I was
love.
going to ask that question anyway. No, but are there any people or things or anything that has been your influence throughout all this time? To put out the kind of work that you put out.
Well, influence or
Yeah,
inspiration?
influence. Let's just say influence. Forget inspiration. I don't want. You probably don't want to talk about that right now.
Well, influence, I think, just like general, just drawing and painting. Like I like it when you can see somebody's drawing skills
Yeah.
coming through. But yeah, I had a couple teachers in college. I think a lot of people that we graduated with, their work, 5% of it, you can still kind of see that teacher has their thumbprint on that student. And I'm probably one of those people too. But yeah, or a couple other people that we graduated with. A
Yeah.
lot of us have a similar. Um, our work may not necessarily look the same, um, but it still has a similar sophistication or a similar vibe or something, right? So I think you're just kind of a sponge, and you kind of absorb whoever's around you to a certain degree. But yeah, for the most part, like actual influences, like I never really gravitated towards one specific artist and said, okay, I want to emulate this guy's work or something. But um, Yeah, it's I, I try to keep influences like that at a like an arm length, just so it doesn't kind of interfere too much. Um, I don't know. I kind of just like to make sure it still looks like mine, and have those influences kind of slowly creep in. And I might try a little kind of thing here, a little thing there that changes things. But for most people who are looking at my work, they don't realize where it's maybe coming from or that I'm trying something new. They just think, oh, it's just a new piece that Darren's working on, right? So
Let's talk about failure. Tell us about a time when you did experience like some major, screw up or major failure. What happened and how did it work out? How did it all work out at the end? Did you find yourself avoiding those? Exactly. Yeah, totally, totally.
now it's yeah, now like I think I probably tweeted it a few times. Basically, like if you don't want your client to choose a shitty idea, then don't show your client any shitty idea.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that. Like there's some illustrators out there who will show their clients, 5 and 10 different ideas. Um, but and that's great if you have that many ideas.
That's a lot.
that's a lot. But like, hate to break it to you, but out of those 5 or 10 ideas, not all of them are good.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to, you should be, somewhat professional. You should know how to edit those down and say, okay, here's the best 3, and here's what I think, fits your needs, and here's the 3 that fit my needs, and hopefully they're the same. But at least if you're presenting 3 that you feel confident with, it doesn't matter which one the client chooses. As long as you like it, then you're going to be happy with the imagery that you're making, right? So now, and I still use that approach now for the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, where it's if I don't, I don't know, if you leave a turd in the yard, someone's going to step in it, just like Tad Carpenter was kind of saying. Like, it's kind of the same approach, but so don't give them any turds to step in.
Oh yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Because you know for sure, if you give them that one crappy idea, they're going to step in it, or they're going to choose it, and then you're going to end up making this image that you don't want to make, and you're just doing it for the money at that point, or just to kind of keep the client happy. And I don't know, it's
you just want to abandon it at that point. You just want to leave it and say, forget about this.
Yeah. So now it's, just present what you're confident presenting, or what you want to do, and hope that they buy into it. And if not, then find a way to make it work.
Yep. Hey, earlier we were talking about kids and how, you've had to change a few things. A few little things.
Well, it's completely changed because work isn't as important as it used to be. So, like, once upon a time, like the room that I'm in, this is my old studio, and now it's like, now there's a bed in here. It's the spare bedroom, because I moved the studio outside of the house because I can't work with a family here anymore. It's completely crazy around here, with kids running around, or kids crying, and diapers needing changed, and it's every cliche thing they say about parenting it's true.
Damn.
Yeah. You know what? When my son was born, I was working on a CD cover, and all the artwork that I was doing, like, it kind of became this weird time capsule, because I remember what I was doing before my son was born, and I had a deadline. Like, the deadline was right when he was supposed to be born, and he ended up coming like 2 or 3 weeks early, 3 weeks early. So I thought, I was like, oh, I've got all the time in the world. I'll finish up this job. I can take some time off. Baby will be born. Just go back to work. Right there, that was the first lesson that, you know what? You can't control this stuff. The kid's going to come when he wants to come. And so right then I had to say, okay, hey, I'm at the hospital. You're not getting your artwork. But yeah, those pieces that I was working on kind of became this weird time capsule, because I kind of remember every brush stroke leading up to it, and then saying, okay, now I'm off to the hospital. I'm going to take a few days off, and for the birth of my son, and then get back to work. And every brush stroke after that, all I kept thinking about is my son. He's upstairs, or he's at the hospital still, so I just want to play with him, or just want to see him, or just want to hold him. And I didn't really, I still cared what was going on with the artwork, but it just became, I just need to get this done. Just do your best you can. Don't fiddle with it. Just, it just kind of became, I don't know, like everything that was important here before is now here, and now the kids are here, right? So it's, it's definitely completely life-changing in a positive way. I mean, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but it's phenomenal. So I'd highly recommend kids.
Awesome.
So, but yeah, work-wise, I had my kid, like, I was working out of here when I had my son, and it was great because I didn't miss anything. Like, my wife would be upstairs with our son, and I could go hear him giggling, and I can go see why he was giggling, or figure out why he was crying, and give her a break or something. And I didn't miss anything. But I worked like an hour here, take an hour off, work an hour. So my day was so fragmented that I'd find myself working, 12 hours a day, going to bed at 2 and 3 and 4 a.m. And then you're up at like 6 or 7 with the baby again. So you just learn to function on zero sleep. You just start emailing people at all times of day. You start working at all hours of the day, and it's just not completely healthy. But you can be really surprised what you can function on. And when my daughter came along 6 months ago, that's when I was like, okay, you know what? My son's running around upstairs, and now there's a new one who's going to need a lot of attention, I think I need to bring the studio outside of the house so I can go there for 8 hours a day,
Yeah.
focus on what I need to get done, and then come home. And at home, I'm just dad, and I'm not, dad half the time. And I got to run down to the basement and be illustrator for an hour, and then go back upstairs and be dad again, right? So, and it was there's a couple guys on Twitter who were like, you know what? We experienced the exact same thing, and they have a couple kids who are older now, so they already knew kind of what I was going through, and they was like, yeah, at least try it. Like it'll be good for you, and if it doesn't work out, you just go back to working in the house. It's only money that you're paying for rent or whatever for a studio, right? So it's don't worry about it too much. But it's been great. Like I've been in the studio for 6 months. I don't even have a computer at the house anymore. Like I'm on my son's iPad. And yeah, my 3-year-old, he's got his own iPad. But
Man, look at that.
yeah, well, it's so he can Skype with my parents who live far away, so he can actually have a relationship with them, like, and see them and stuff, right? But yeah, it's great because I don't even have a computer at the house anymore. I don't think about work. I don't email anybody at 9:00 at night for a job. No one's ever died because I haven't emailed them back at 9:00. Not that I know of, anyways. And yeah, no, it's just kind of
liberating, right? I mean, not having a computer at home.
It's weird. It's like for the first little while, because with us, like a lot of times, like doing work is kind of cathartic for us, and it is a hobby in some ways. So I don't come down and paint anymore. I don't play around in Photoshop just to have fun. Like it's at home I'm just dad. So if I need something to do, I'll go play in the garage or go play with my son's cars or build Legos or something with them. But yeah, it's good to have that separation and be able to. I find like that 8 hours that I'm gone, I get just as much done in those 8 hours than I did in maybe working 10 or 12 hours at home.
So you become a lot more efficient with your work, and
yeah, totally.
you probably have everything like strictly scheduled.
It's it's more just not necessarily scheduling. You just get down to business right away. You just know you only have so many hours out of the house, so you just get shit done. And it's just like when you're on deadline. Like if you have a week to do something, you're going to take as much possible time to do that usually, right? Most creatives will. But if they need it by 4:00, you just make a decision. You make that decision, and then it just
go with it.
Yeah.
If anyone out there is planning on having children anytime soon, and you're in the arts, you're a designer, you're an illustrator, creative professional, and you're wondering, well, how is this going to affect me? It's not that bad, right, Darren?
Everybody does it. Everybody does it. Kids are a great excuse. Not everybody, but a lot of people do it. And kids are a great excuse to get longer deadlines. If your kid's sick in the middle of the week, you know what? Just email the client and say, hey, my kid's sick. There's a good chance that art director probably has experienced the same thing, and they understand what you're going through, and you just become part of this club with, creatives with kids. And you're not cool anymore. Now you're just a dad or a mom. And it's everybody makes it work. But yeah, like on Twitter lately, there's been back in February when my daughter was born, it just seemed like all of a sudden everybody was having kids. Like Jeff Rogers had a baby girl, and Will Bryant had a baby, and I think Mark Weaver had another child. Like it just all of a sudden, and Matt Lehman had a kid too. So like all of a sudden, like it was just Dad Central on Twitter. It just felt like a Facebook feed or something, I'm sure, to some people, but.
I usually ask this question: what books do you recommend? What are you turning to right now? Are you reading anything that's really getting you motivated or inspired?
So the latest acquisition is this one here.
Oh, sweet, yeah.
Trademarks and Symbols Volume 2. It's an oldie from like whenever it is, 73, I think. So, yeah, I mean, such simple, like nice thick lines, really simple stuff. But yeah, I'm really jealous of like guys who can create work like this, because I don't think in this capacity whatsoever. So it's really challenging. But this is probably some of my favorite stuff to look at, is just really simple graphic stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Mikey Burton creates work like this, and Matt Lehman can create work like this. And there's so many guys that create fantastic work. But the reason why I picked this book up actually is to kind of train myself to start simplifying. Like, I know my work will never look like that, or maybe I don't necessarily want it to look like that, but there's 1,000 lessons in there that I can learn from, right? So, but yeah, I'm writing a kid's book right now, but my current work doesn't really look children's book like, or in my eyes, it doesn't. I don't think it's children's book like. So I've written a kid's book, and I kind of see work in my head. It's just a matter of being able to transition my current work and make it applicable to the proper age group, and kind of actually have it come out how I have it in my head. But this is kind of the Bible for trying to figure out how to simplify, and it's this is going to help me immensely to be able to do that. There's a couple other here. Let's see. This one.
Aha, Montero.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of his on Twitter, but I love his approach to business, and just kind of, no muss, no fuss, just call it like it is. And that's kind of how I try to approach business. So, yeah, that's a fantastic one. This one's all right.
Huh, never heard about that one.
Yeah, so Craig Ward, words or pictures dot what is it, .uk dot words are pictures, I think.
Craig who again?
Ward. Yeah. But yeah, he's probably been around this for the same amount of time as I have.
Okay, so wordsalepictures.co.uk, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you'd recognize the work the second that you saw it, but he's pretty blunt and calls things like it is. But I think I've read that book 2 or 3 times. It's just kind of a good primer for, like, takes all these lies and says, you know what? It just kind of calls BS on something, but he just kind of keeps it nice and short and sweet.
Yeah.
And there's these two by Paul Hart.
Oh, I love that book.
Yeah, it's kind of.
There's the other one. What's the other one? There it is. Yeah, definitely. Hey, you mentioned something about a book. You're working on a children's book right now?
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, sure. So for years, like, I was always kind of not anti-kids books or something. I just never really thought my work applied to kids books at all. But ever since having kids, again, like the influence of having kids in your life and how it kind of changes your workflow, I started buying all these kids books to read to the kids, and I'd flip through some of them and I'd be like, you know what, this is garbage. It's illustrated nicely, but this story sucks.
Oh,
or vice versa, where the story was really good, but the illustration just were kind of crappy. And then you get a couple books that have both things really, really working well. And I'm like, okay, that is it's a well-written book, and it's really nicely illustrated. That's a good book. So all of a sudden I just started getting more interest into kids' books. So it's not because I had kids, or I'm not writing it for my kids, but I'm writing it because of my kids. So I just started, like, and I've always, like, written songs and stuff like that and play guitar. So, like, composing a song is not a problem. So I figured, how hard would it be to actually write a kid's book?
There you go.
I don't think writing, you have all the time in the world to kind of boil down a thought and make it as concise as you want, or explore it as much as you want. So, and with the kids' book, I just kind of worked on an idea and kind of sorted it out, and now I'm ready to start, like, thumbnailing it and storyboarding it and dumbing it out, and we'll see what happens. I'm just going to kind of bring it to a certain, I'll bring it to dummy stage, and I might do, like, 1 or 2 kind of final pieces, and then I'll start approaching publishers and seeing if they're interested in it. So yeah,
it's exciting, man.
But it's something great to work on, because it's like, completely, I have zero experience in the kids book side of the industry, right? So just the whole learning curve about learning like how you approach publishers, the royalties and everything, and agents, and like it's a completely new game. So for that, I really like that. It's I don't know, just something new to me, and all these new things that I have to kind of worry about or not worry about, or maybe there's something else I can kind of bring to the game where I don't know if it's there or not, but I'll give it a shot. If it falls flat on my face, I'll probably just write a different kid story and try to go from there. But it's something that I definitely want to explore.
To see when that comes out, man, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and yeah, like I didn't realize kids book publishing, like the lead times on it are absolutely crazy. So they might say, okay, we need it by the end of August, and then by the time it goes to like all through the different channels, it might be a year and a half by that time that book actually hits the shelves. So that I'm not super crazy about how long that stuff, but that I know that now that I know that that's kind of how it is. It might be years before that book is published, right? So
It's awesome, man. So Darren, we're about to wrap it up right now, but before we do that, what would your final piece of guidance be for illustrators, designers, creative professionals out there?
I don't know if it's guidance. Like it's always just kind of something that, like, if I'm experiencing something now, that's probably the advice that I'm going to give somebody right now, right? Yeah, I think probably just don't be in such a rush to maybe get somewhere. Like every once in a while, like I'll follow somebody on Twitter and I'll kind of see like they're a younger illustrator, and I kind of know I know exactly what they're doing, and I know where they want to be, and they're just completely consumed with every other illustrator, what every other illustrator is doing, where they're getting work, and it's just constant comparison to their own career. Where this person's probably got 15 years experience, but they only have 2 or 3 years experience. So yeah, don't be in such a rush to get to that final, not that final stage, but just get to that level. You're never going to really be satisfied. So it just takes time for everything to kind of fall into place, and one client will work begets work. So one client's going to lead to another client, and yeah, it's yeah, like when I was in school, I'd flip through American Illustration and Society of Illustrators and see my teachers' works in these books and be like, wow, that'd be amazing to get all these awards and get some of these projects that these guys are working on. And those were all these kind of dreams that like I'd start with when I first got out of school and started working as a freelancer. And then, you land a good client, and then the next you land 2 or 3 really great clients, and then those 2 or 3 would kind of spread into 4 or 5 great clients. And next thing you know, you've been at it for 6 or 7 years, and you actually have a really impressive client list. But because you're always in the middle of it,
exactly,
you don't actually realize what you actually got. You've probably reached all those goals that you had when you first got out of school, but you don't realize you actually obtained them because your goals are always ahead of you, right? So, but
do you still feel the same way about awards? Do you still feel like
I've got in my closet over there, that's where all my awards are. They're in the bottom filing cabinet,
and that's it?
Yeah, that's yeah. I've got gold medals in there. I've got awards from all the main annuals out there. Like I've probably got, oh God, I think the last count was 40 or 50 different awards. But yeah, I don't really get any work from them. So I don't know. It's great to be acknowledged, but I find the thing with awards is maybe some people put too much stock into it. Yeah, and they think like, okay, well, I won an award. Like, I'm just going to wait for the phone to ring, I guess nowadays that's not a phone ringing. You're just waiting for your email to ding, right? So, but yeah, you can't just win an award and expect that that's going to bring in a bunch of work. It may, but yeah, I've never gotten work from awards, and I've been on had some pretty decent ones, like the cover of CA. I don't think I got work from that, but it was amazing being on the cover because like I've always loved CA.
Yeah,
And
it's
all
a
of a sudden my work
massive
is on.
publication. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've always loved it, and I've kind of studied it in school and studied the illustrators and designers in it, and then to actually just be a part of it, it's great. But yeah, I think with awards, I don't know, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? You can't put too much stock in them, but in one way, it's great to submit because the people who are judging are your peers. So in that way, it's good, but it's kind of like not a, it's just another promo. So those 10 judges who are looking at your work, or those 5 judges, they're studying your work, and maybe your work actually gets through. Now you become on you're on their radar all of a sudden. So maybe they didn't know your work before, but now they said, okay, your work's good enough to get in the annual. I think for the people judging it, the art directors and designers and other illustrators who judge it, it's just a good thing to get your work in front of them. But I've submitted to some annuals 5-6 years in a row and got absolutely just turned down, and just rejection after rejection after rejection. And then some other ones, you just send them off 1 or 2 pieces and you get both of them in, and it's great. But yeah, it's I don't know, it's a love-hate relationship with me with and awards. But
Where can people find you? Where can we say hi online?
you can find my website at darrenbooth.com. My Twitter is darebooth.com, D-A-R, or Dar, whatever you want to say. And every other social media site like Instagram and Pinterest, it's all /Darren Booth.
Awesome. And everyone can find that on pencilversuspixel.com/Darren Booth. So that's pencilvspixel.com/Darren Booth. Darren, man, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.